Shalom from Israel to all of the Daystar viewers around the world. I'm Moshe Bar Tzvi, the producer and founder of Israel Now News. We at Israel Now News are dedicated to bringing you the full story and the truth about Israel from Israel. It's written in the Holy Bible when David said in Psalm 25:5, "Lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all the day long." And God says in Zechariah 8:16, "These are the things that you shall do. Speak out the truth to one another. Judge with truth and judgment to peace in your gates. And always search for the truth, and the truth shall set you free." John 8:31. I hope you enjoyed the program. God bless you from Jerusalem. Shalom, shalom.
Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El Rom.
And I'm Rebecca Rand.
In our top story, Iran has appointed a U.S. hostage taker to the United Nations. In another slap in the face to America's attempt at diplomacy, the Islamic Republic has appointed a terrorist and a U.S. hostage taker to the United Nations. In 1979, a group of Islamic terrorists laid siege to the United States Embassy in Tehran and kidnapped a group of 52 American diplomats. They were held hostage for 444 days. Now Iran is demanding that one of the hostage takers, Hamid Abu Talebi, be issued a visa to the United States so that he may represent the hardline Islamic Republic as the Iranian ambassador to the UN. John Bolton, the former United States ambassador to the United Nations, said this appointment is a thumb in the eye of the United States, intended to show that this regime is still the same fundamentally anti-American regime that it has been since 1979. He went on to say that the United States should deny his visa, but he believes there is no chance that the Obama administration will do so.
The United Nations Human Rights Council celebrated its 25th session by passing 5 resolutions condemning Israel last week. In what can only be interpreted as an obsession with demonizing the Jewish state, UNHCR once again spent nearly an entire session berating Israel. 5 anti-Israel resolutions passed nearly unanimously, while human rights violations in other countries were hardly discussed. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu opened the Knesset's weekly cabinet meeting by saying, "The UN Human Rights Council condemned Israel 5 times. While the slaughter in Syria is continuing, innocent people are being hung in the Middle East, and human rights are being eroded. In many countries, free media is being shut down. But the UN Human Rights Council has decided to condemn Israel for what they consider to be building violations, such as enclosing a balcony on a home. This is absurd."
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu postponed the scheduled release of Palestinian prisoners last week after receiving credible information that the Palestinian Authority was planning to cut off peace negotiations as soon as Israel completed the 4th round of freeing Palestinian terrorists. Netanyahu said Jerusalem could not let any more terrorists go without a clear benefit for Israel in return, and that Israel needs some tangible evidence that the Palestinians are sincere in their desire for a true and lasting peace. This decision came after several high-ranking Israeli officials threatened to leave the coalition if Netanyahu went forward with the prisoner release. Deputy Defense Minister Danny Danon made a statement saying that the Palestinians have failed to make concessions in the negotiations and are only participating in order to free terrorists. Israel did, however, make several unprecedented gestures in hopes of enticing the Palestinians back to the negotiating table, including offering to release an additional 400 terrorists in exchange for continuing the U.S.-brokered peace talks for another 6 months. The United States has reportedly offered to release Jonathan Pollard as part of the proposed exchange. The Palestinian leadership has stubbornly countered with several ridiculous demands, such as the release of 1,000 terrorists of the PA's choosing. The Arab side also demanded that Israel immediately cease building homes for Jewish citizens in Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria.
In a desperate attempt to save the failing peace talks, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry made an unscheduled stop in Israel last week. In another display of their unwillingness to make a sincere peace agreement with Israel, the Palestinians issued an ultimatum to Kerry. Either pressure Israel into releasing the fourth group of Palestinian prisoners immediately, or the PA will seek to gain membership in all UN organizations in the morning. Senior members of the Fatah committee have already declared the peace talks have failed and that Israel is to blame.
Senior Palestinian Authority officials have claimed that Islamic law forbids Jews from praying at the Temple Mount and the Western Wall in an attempt to give theological validation to the terrorist war against Israel and the unjust control of the holiest site in Judaism. Palestinian Media Watch has published transcripts of a speech given by the former Chief Justice of PA Religious Affairs, in which he said that Allah decreed that the blessed Al-Aqsa Mosque is Islamic and belongs to Muslims alone. The PA official went on to say that Jews have no right to the Temple Mount or its courtyards, specifically the Western Wall. Jews have resorted to worshiping at the Western Wall, the closest available area to the Temple Mount, after having been banned from praying on their most holy site. This new attempt to ban Jews from the Western Wall is a ploy by Palestinian leaders to further distance Jews from the place where the first and second temples once stood.
England may be the next country to blacklist the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. British Prime Minister David Cameron has ordered an urgent inquiry into the Muslim Brotherhood and its activities in the United Kingdom. The investigation will examine claims that the terrorist organization, which operates out of Egypt and Gaza, is responsible for the deaths of 3 tourists in Egypt last year. A source in the British Prime Minister's office reportedly told The Guardian newspaper that Britain's Foreign Intelligence Agency will be investigating the Brotherhood's ties to Islamic extremism and terrorism, as well as investigating several senior Muslim Brotherhood officials living in England.
The United States chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff was in Israel last week, holding high-level meetings with his Israeli counterparts. Israeli Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Benny Gantz and Israeli Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon hosted General Martin Dempsey for talks which they said were held to discuss further cooperation between the two allies. Despite heightened tensions between the Obama administration and Israel, the 3 defense officials portrayed a positive relationship. Dempsey joked that he speaks to Ya'alon more than his own wife, and Ya'alon said that the United States is truly Israel's best friend.
The Israeli Counterterrorism Bureau has issued a travel warning for the countries of Turkey and Malaysia and the Sinai Peninsula. The organization released a statement saying that Israelis should be very careful when traveling abroad during the Passover holiday, which can serve as an opportunity to attack Jews. It stressed that the information used to make their assessment is credible and displays a very real threat. There are currently 41 travel advisories for Israelis to countries such as Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Egypt, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, and several other Muslim countries. The current advisory also added the popular Israeli tourist destinations of Jordan, Morocco, and Turkey to the list. The bulletin stresses that Israelis should be alert while traveling abroad and should vary their daily routine as to avoid becoming a target.
Kibbutz Keturah in the Arava Desert is home to the world's first self-cleaning solar energy production facility. Jointly owned by Arava Power and Siemens AG, the massive solar field has deployed a team of 100 robots to clean the solar panels. The facility generates about 9 million kilowatt hours of solar energy per year, but its location in the Arava Desert poses a problem that many solar fields face: dust, and a lot of it. Dirty solar panels produce on average 35% less energy than clean ones. Eran Miller, CEO of Ecopia, the company that created the robots, said due to the expense of traditional labor-intensive water-based cleaning, the solar panels at Kibbutz Keturah were only cleaned 9 times a year. Ecopia's robot solution uses microfiber brushes to clean the panels nightly without the use of water.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Please stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host Josh Reinstein, and we're here in yet another beautiful day in Jerusalem in our rooftop studio. My guest today is Gary Beyer, Managing Director of Writers Gathering Jerusalem. Gary, thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show.
Gary, tell our viewers a little bit about what is the Writers Gathering Jerusalem.
Well, it is a program whereby we sponsor writers, mainstream writers from the film world in Hollywood, the stage world in New York, and the novel world, and television writer producers, and we bring them here to Israel. We sponsor them to come over here, and we immerse them in this land in hopes that we will feed that well from which they write. So when they go back, they will write stories that are life-affirming about this incredible place, or they will bring their work here. That's the goal, and that's what is happening.
You know, we're here in Jerusalem, which is statistically the safest capital in the world. Yeah. Yet on the news, you would think it's a war zone. Where is the misconnection coming from?
Well, I think the misconnection is coming from the journalists that cover the stories here.
And what are you doing to kind of combat that false narrative?
Well, I would say we've brought 14 writers here. And it's amazing because they all are stunned by the difference between what they see on the news in the States and when they get here. And usually they say two things. One is, I feel perfectly safe. And the other is that I had no idea it was like this. And this is life-changing for me.
You know, you've been doing this for a while now, yet just recently the Ministry of Tourism, the City of Jerusalem, is now giving stipends to people who will film in Jerusalem. Why do you think it's become such a priority for the government of Israel?
Well, I think part of it is that Mayor Barkat has a real vision to see Jerusalem become film-friendly. And I think that's a very wise thing to do, and he has slowly and methodically created a film commission that, as you said, offers stipends and tax incentives and perks for a filmmaker to make it appealing to come here and film. And when people see a place that they've had a whole different perspective about, when they see it presented in a beautiful way and in a way that there is tremendous integration of life and cultures here, it changes their worldview about that place, and they will want to come here.
The movie Noah just came out, which is based obviously on the biblical story of Noah, and there's been many stories based on the Bible coming out, but none of them were filmed in Israel. Why do you think they're filming in other locations other than the land of the Bible?
Well, I think a few reasons. One is you have sets that have been specifically built in Morocco and then in Italy that are first century biblical kinds of sets, almost like a back lot used to be in Hollywood. And I think they're slowly discovering that Israel is an entire back lot. And they're used to being in a place where they can simply drive to a location and it's all pre-built. And Israel is still learning to do that, but I think we're off to a great start here.
You've mentioned that you've brought 14 writers from Hollywood, from New York, novelists,
right,
to Israel to see real Israel. Have you seen real results from that?
Yes, actually. There are two video series. One is for teens and one is for probably 3 to 10. Beautifully animated video series, actually, that is just being released across the states, called Yesido. It's getting ready to release its 4th episode. You'll find it in Amazon and bookstores. Another video series that is out there that is primarily, I would say, in the church market. There's also been a feature film that we have facilitated in the North, which is called Amazing Love, the story of Hosea, which was a crossover feature film starring Sean Astin. We've done a feature documentary we've helped facilitate. 8 plays have come from writers that have experienced this place. Because one of the things we do when we bring a writer here is we not only immerse them in the land, but every day they are with someone that calls this place home. It could be a wide variety of people: fishermen, farmers, Knesset members, soldiers, artists. So they go back with a lot of stories in their heart.
You founded this organization together with your lovely wife.
I sure did.
Why was it so important for you as a family to do this?
My wife and I both met here. We married here, and we both have a love for this place, and we realize we are both people of story, and we know the importance of story. And so we both decided we would start looking for storytellers primarily in the U.S. that have never been here, that have the ability to write life-affirming stories and seed into this place to hopefully show the world that it's a very different place than what you see on the news.
Gary, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
First, come to Israel. It's an amazing place. You not only experience the past, but you experience the wonder of the present, and you also experience a vibrant, cross-cultural society that is hopeful, that is creative, and are people of story. There are so many stories here, and one of the wonderful things about story is it has a possibility, a potential to bypass your thinker and go to your heart, and that's often where change really, really happens.
Thank you, Gary, for being on the show.
You're welcome.
And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, now back to the studio.
This is Jerusalem, Israel's capital city. It's an ancient and modern treasure that is beyond belief. There's a little bit of Israel in all of us. Come find the Israel in you.
Up next, shining light from Israel.
The media often refer to a place called Arab East Jerusalem. Sometimes we are told that this is a city that was conquered by Israel in 1967, as if that is the only claim Israel has to the city. But let's take a few minutes for some honest reporting.
The term Arab East Jerusalem is not historically accurate. We have thousands of years of history of a single undivided city. Look back through all the various chapters in Jerusalem's past, and you will not find a time when Jerusalem was divided into East and West prior to the war with Jordan. We have archaeology, historical accounts, records that prove over 3,000 years of undivided Jewish existence here in Jerusalem. You can go to archaeological digs and find evidence of over 3,000 years of Jewish life. You can find places in the areas that are today called Arab East Jerusalem, where King David lived. The wall behind me is a part of the palace that King David lived in, and yet even the very existence of King David is today being questioned. The fact is, the division of Jerusalem into East and West only began in 1948 with the invasion of the Jordanian army, who erected walls here of concrete, barbed wire, and put in minefields. This division only lasted 19 years. We have eyewitness testimony from those whose families lived for generations in what is called Arab East Jerusalem, and who were expelled from their homes by the Jordanian army.
I was born in 1942 in Old Jerusalem. We were like 8th generation at that time.
I live in the old city. I am 6th generation of Arav Eliezer Bergman, who came to this place on the year 1835. We were evacuated from here, from the old city, with nothing. We only the clothes we wore. We had for many days, we had nothing. Our homes were left here with all the furniture, all our possessions. When we left the old city, we were refugees. The world knows about the Arab refugees of 1948. There were also Jewish refugees, and I was one of them.
The last day of the war, which was ceasefire, my grandfather brought the last water, and the Arab already were on top of the roof of the synagogue, and they killed him.
For 19 years, we could not get into the old city. Our Jerusalem was divided in two. It's the first time in the history of Jerusalem that this city was divided.
In 1967, the Jordanians fled, Jerusalem was reunited, and the walls torn down. Jews could once again return to their holiest places. Far from creating a new situation of occupation, the war re-established a status quo of an undivided city. Today, few people even know where the dividing line was. Thousands of Jews and Arabs cross the old dividing line every day without even realizing it. Jerusalem is a unified city, despite what the media would have you believe. Yet, with references to East Jerusalem as a separate geographical area, the media are supporting a historically inaccurate myth that undermines the legitimate Israeli claims that are backed by thousands of years of history.
The two-city narrative is a myth, it's a lie, and the media are responsible for carrying that core message of the delegitimization campaign against the State of Israel and Jewish residents in the land.
To refer to the city as if there are two distinct sides is wrong. What the media call Arab East Jerusalem is really where thousands of years of Jewish history took place. Don't let the media distort the real history of Jerusalem.
Anywhere else, this would be a vacation by a lake. But this is the Sea of Galilee. The wonders of Israel are beyond belief. There's a little bit of Israel in all of us. Come find the Israel in you.
Please stay tuned for the ICEJ report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
When Israel was established in 1948, it was exactly as the prophet Ezekiel foresaw. Thus says the Lord, behold, I will cause you to come up from your graves, and I will bring you into the land of Israel. Israel literally arose from the ashes of the Holocaust, one of the greatest miracles in human history. Still today there are some 200,000 Holocaust survivors which still live in Israel. According to the Israeli government, there are still 1/3 of them who are in need and live below the poverty line. Over the past 3 years, the Lord placed a unique opportunity before the International Christian Embassy to help those heroes who survived the darkest chapter of Jewish history.
In December 2009, the Aid Department of the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, ICEJ Aid, was approached by Shimon Sabag, the director of the social welfare organization Yad Ezer Lehaver, who was looking for support for a special project. Having been shocked to see Holocaust survivors coming to his soup kitchen for food, he realized that there was a distinct need and began a project to house 14 survivors in the building next door to the offices of the organization.
When we were actually approached by the organization Yad Ezer Lehaver in Haifa for Holocaust survivors, we somehow knew when we visited the project and visited the director that we had stumbled on something very unique. The project was very unique, there's nothing like it in the land, and also the organization itself had a proven track record. And we just knew that we had to start working with them.
Thanks to the generous giving of faithful Christian supporters worldwide, the ICEJ has assisted Yad Ezer Lehaver in achieving what was once just a dream, a neighborhood of multi-dwelling facilities able to provide practical care and a comfortable and safe home for more than 100 Holocaust survivors.
When we actually first met him, Shimon had a great heart and lots of dreams, but his vision for this place was at the most to maybe house 20 people. And we started on this together, not knowing what would happen, and seeing in the end this amazing street full of buildings.
The Haifa Home for Holocaust Survivors has captured the attention of the Israeli press and a number of Israeli leaders and dignitaries. At ceremonies marking the stages of completion, the attendance of senior government officials and leaders has given voice to the need to assist these individuals who have suffered so much. In the past year, the Haifa Home dedicated a synagogue on its premises to provide a place for the survivors to participate in Shabbat services and observe Jewish holidays. The synagogue also provided the opportunity for some of the survivors to have their bar mitzvahs, since many of them were denied this rite of passage due to being interned in concentration camps.
The Holocaust survivors are very old. They are from their end 70s into their 90s, and are quite a lot of them who are poor, they cannot live by themselves anymore, and who are lonely. And that's actually why it was so necessary to have a home for them, where they could feel cared for and they would be able to live their life in security and in a good atmosphere.
I didn't expect in my life that I'm going to end up here, quiet, the price is right, I don't have to pay too much. And I'm so grateful to the International Christian Embassy. After all what we went through, they've built for us a home where I'm going to spend the rest of my life here. I'm going to die here. And I'm grateful to all the people in the world who are helping us.
Please prayerfully consider what you can do in order to stand with us to help those last surviving heroes here in Israel.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Rebecca Rand, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us next week for all of your Israel updates.